The night America thought the Martians had landed. A historical narrative inspired by the 1938 War of the Worlds broadcast. On the evening of October 30th, 1938, families across America settled into their living rooms as they did every Sunday night. Radios glowed warm in darkened parlors. Children sprawled on rugs with comic books. Parents adjusted volume knobs while supper dishes cooled in the kitchen. Outside, autumn winds rattled bare branches against windows. At exactly 8 p.m. Eastern Time, the Columbia Broadcasting System began airing a program called The Mercury Theater on the Air. Few listeners paid attention to the opening announcement. Why would they? Radio dramas were common. Music programs, comedy hours, news bulletins, these were the lifeblood of American evenings. But this broadcast would become something else entirely, something unforgettable, something that made parts of the nation believe the world was ending. A calm beginning. The voice on the radio was smooth, professional. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. Then came dance music. An orchestra played softly, as though broadcasting live from a Manhattan hotel ballroom. The announcer introduced the band leader. Everything felt ordinary, comfortingly so. Then the music stopped. Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program to bring you a special bulletin. A scientist at Princeton Observatory had detected strange explosions on the surface of Mars. The orchestra resumed. A few listeners frowned. Mars? Strange, but interesting. Minutes later, another interruption. A fiery object had streaked through Earth's atmosphere and crashed into farmland near Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Phones rang in living rooms. Neighbors leaned closer to their radios. Then a reporter, his voice nervous, described the scene. A metallic cylinder embedded in the earth, steam hissing from its sides, crowds gathering, police trying to push people back. The first panic. Across the country, people tuned in late. They missed the opening disclaimer that the program was a dramatization based on H.G. Wells' novel, The War of the Worlds. What they heard instead sounded like live breaking news. A reporter spoke from the field, breathless. The top of the thing is beginning to unscrew. I can see something moving inside. Then screaming. Then silence. The announcer in the studio sounded shaken. We have lost contact with our correspondent. Another bulletin followed. Military units mobilizing. Scientists baffled. Authorities urging calm. But the tone, so realistic, so restrained, made it terrifying. This was how real emergencies sounded. Highways filled with cars. In New Jersey, some families grabbed blankets and fled into the night. Churches filled with people praying. Police stations were flooded with calls. In parts of New York and Pennsylvania, listeners packed into bars, asking owners to turn radios louder. Doctors reported patients in shock. Some people wrapped wet towels around their faces, believing poison gas was spreading. Others loaded shotguns. Some prepared to head for the countryside. Newspapers later described highways clogged with cars as families attempted to escape cities they believed were under attack. In reality, no Martians had landed, but for those listening, it felt utterly real. A nation under siege on air. The broadcast escalated. Artillery fired on the invaders. Nothing worked. Heat rays vaporized soldiers. New York City was described as choking beneath black clouds. Broadway, silent. The Hudson River, filled with drifting bodies. The announcer, now trembling, whispered, "This may be the last time we'll be able to broadcast." Then, the signal cut. Static filled the air. In living rooms across America, people wept. Parents hugged children. Some listeners reportedly wrote farewell letters. It sounded like civilization collapsing in real time. Behind the microphones, inside CBS studios, the mood was far calmer. Actors read scripts. Sound technicians dropped metal sheets for explosions. A young director, Orson Welles, only 23, paced behind glass partitions, timing scenes. The goal was innovation, to make radio drama feel immersive. Too immersive, it turned out. As panic reports trickled into the station, police calls, newspaper offices buzzing, switchboards jammed, executives grew nervous. They inserted additional announcements clarifying that the show was fictional. But for many listeners, the damage was done. Fear travels faster than corrections. Morning after. By dawn, the truth was everywhere. Headlines screamed, radio play panics nation. Fake Martian invasion sends thousands fleeing. The public was furious. Some demanded regulations on broadcasting. Others laughed in embarrassment. Congress discussed whether radio should face tighter oversight. Psychologists debated mass hysteria. Orson Welles issued an apology. He later joked that it was the strangest Halloween prank in history. But the night left a permanent mark on American media culture. It demonstrated, terrifyingly, how powerful new technology could be, how easily realism overrode reason, how trust, once given to a voice in the darkness, could reshape reality. Why it still matters. The 1938 War of the Worlds broadcast is remembered not because aliens were convincing, but because people trusted the medium delivering the message. Radio was authoritative. Voices sounded official. Interruptions meant emergencies. In a tense pre-World War II world, already nervous about conflict abroad, that authority triggered fear. The event is now studied in journalism schools, psychology classes, and media ethics debates. It stands as a warning. When information moves faster than verification, panic becomes contagious. Epilogue. Somewhere in America that night, a farmer turned off his radio and stared at the dark fields outside. A mother whispered prayers over her sleeping children. A police dispatcher rubbed aching ears after hours of ringing phones. And in a Manhattan studio, young actors removed headphones, unaware they had just frightened a nation. No Martians had come, but for one unforgettable evening, America believed.